All right, good morning, everyone. As Felicia said, I'm Jenna Payne, and I'm the Federal Program Manager for the CINR funding opportunity. I want to thank everybody again for joining us today. Drew will actually be providing the overview of this year's CINR opportunities, which, as he said, includes a new research experiences for undergraduate supplement, as well as a new Phase 2 continuation FOA. So we're excited to discuss these new opportunities with you today. And with that, I'll pass things over to you, Drew. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Jenna. We will get a start here. There's a lot of slides. There's a lot of information to go through. Something important is that all of these slides will be posted, including the Office Director slides you just saw, out on NEUP.gov after this webinar concludes. As I mentioned before, you can ask questions during the webinar by raising your hand and asking a live question. We've also enabled the chat, which means that you will be able to chat questions if you'd rather have your questions asked that way. So any questions that don't get answered today will be sent to program managers or program leads, and those answers will get answered on NEUP.gov, and an email will be sent to you directly with those answers. Specific questions on individual eligibility or topic area details should be addressed offline. There, as we've mentioned several times now, we will have an office hours opportunity for topic area details. So I've got five main objectives today with this presentation. We'll be going through a quick FOA overview. I'll be introducing the two new components of the university program, research experiences for undergraduate supplements and the Phase 2 continuation CINR FOA. And then we'll go over some policy updates and reminders and the review process for those of you that are relatively new to this process. From an FOA objectives and priorities, the FOA really revolves around what's important in the NE mission, and that is three different things: to enhance the long-term viability and competitiveness of the existing reactor fleet, developing the advanced reactor pipeline, and implementing and maintaining the national strategic fuel cycle and supply chain infrastructure. All applications submitted to this FOA need to demonstrate a strong tie to one of those NE mission areas. As a general comment, this FOA and NE conduct cross-cutting nuclear energy research and development and associated infrastructure support activities to develop innovative technologies that offer the promise of dramatically improved performance. This is a very broad statement, and we'll try to dig down into the details of the topic areas as we have additional opportunities to talk with program managers. There are some significant changes to the CINR format. As Dr. Huff alluded to earlier, there is a change to the topic area structure. Subtopic areas have been eliminated, as you've likely noticed if you've looked into the work scope document. That means that we have a total of 13 traditional R&D areas, 2 IRP areas, and 4 NSUF areas, 2 of those which have an NSUF and R&D component, and 2 areas that are NSUF access only. That hopefully will increase the continued flexibility of those topic areas and that topic area structure, so you can submit your innovative ideas without the restrictions of a restricted topic area format. We will have an REU supplement available for all R&D and IRP applications. That supplement is up to $100,000 and is proposed as part of the project and awarded along with the initial R&D grant. That means the REU plan will be integrated into the overall proposal as you propose it during the full application stage. I'll give some details about that REU program as we go. There are blue sky opportunities in both R&D and IRP scopes. We'll talk about those a little bit more. And also exciting, there's new funding opportunities to complement the CINR FOA. Aaron mentioned these in his opening, but we have a Phase 2 continuation FOA, which I'll be discussing, and then a reactor sharing and outreach funding opportunity and infrastructure revitalization funding opportunity that will support the CINR FOA and the overall university program that will be going out this fall. We'll be presenting some of those opportunities and a quick overview of what those are in the infrastructure FOA overview later today. So to address due dates, which I'm sure you're all very interested in based on our accelerated schedule and structure here, we plan on having the FOAs released this coming month in June. Those are currently going through reviews, final reviews, and we're trying to get those out as quickly as possible. So I want to warn everybody, as I tell you about this schedule, it is subject to change based on when the FOAs get out. So as these due dates start approaching and the FOAs still aren't out, please don't panic. We understand at a minimum it takes a couple of weeks to write these, even a white paper or something like that. And so what I would encourage you to do now is you do have the topic areas as we expect them to be in the funding opportunity. Those are subject to change, but typically stay more or less the same. Start forming your teams now. Start writing your letters of intent or your pre-applications now based on those topic areas. And that will save you some of that stress or some of that time about when these due dates hit. We intentionally release those topic areas now so that you can start doing that regardless of when the FOA actually comes out. I should be providing enough detail in this presentation. You should understand the parameters around how to prep those applications. We will have any office hours June 19th through the 23rd in a few weeks to give you all an opportunity to talk directly with program managers. Program managers will be presenting a short overview of the topic area, what their current research is in the programs, and then there'll be an extended dialogue or question and answer session. We're planning at least 45 minutes to an hour in each topic area to have a back and forth conversation. So please be prepared for that and please mark that on your calendar. Our planned NSUF LOI, letter of intent date is June 21st. Phase 2 continuation LOIs, June 28th. Pre-applications due July 12th. The idea here is to accelerate the schedule as you look through it so that by the end of the calendar year, we have all of you have your full applications in for final review during the early spring, deep winter timeframe if you're here in Idaho. So if you have any questions about this schedule, please feel free to ask during the question and answer session. From an FOA organization standpoint, it's very familiar for those that are used to CINR. I'll explain it for those who may be new. There are 3 appendices that really define what kind of research is going on. Appendix A is university-led R&D. Those are university program R&D, the first 13 topic areas that I talked about, or the first 12 areas, excuse me, I talked about. Strategic needs R&D, which is topic 13, is an open area. And university R&D with NSUF access, which are labeled NSUF 1 in the topic area document. Those are R&D projects paired with NSUF access, and there's 2 different areas that will be covered in those scopes. For IRPs, integrated research projects, these are our larger projects that typically sit around $3 million. That's our grand challenge for advancing reactor deployment and our grand challenge R&D for minority serving institutions areas. And then finally, Appendix C is NSUF 2 or NSUF access only. So that's if you have a current CINR project or you have industry funds or you're a national lab. It's a way to access irradiation PIE, beam lines, other things like that through the NSUF. There will be a follow-on presentation to cover both NSUF 1 and NSUF 2 by Chris Barr and NSUF's director, Brendan Heidrich. So I've kind of gone over what the broad categories are here, but I think one of the things I want to emphasize in this slide is that the university program R&D has interest in innovative ideas that address technical challenges in those specific topical areas. The strategic needs blue sky R&D supports key nuclear engineering topical areas that are critical to advancing continued research and workforce pipelines. And so it's broad and it's wide open and it's intended to capture anything that covers the NE emission, but maybe isn't represented well in the topic areas as described in the document. So there's less defined topical areas. This could be an area that's really appropriate for high risk, high reward type pathways. And then IRPs are significant projects that are focused on addressing grand challenges or specific gaps. They should be larger teams that are multidisciplinary to be able to attack broader, bigger issues than a traditional R&D project. So I have the topic areas listed as they sit in the topic area document that has been posted in the chat. So if you have not seen it yet, feel free to click on that link and take a look at the details for each of these topic areas. Let's go over the kind of the rules for all of these appendices, for Appendix A, Appendix B, and Appendix C. Topic areas 1 through 12 and NSUF have a proposal limit of up to $1 million. It's anticipated that many projects won't hit that $1 million mark, so don't feel like that is a requirement for the project to be $1 million. If you have a modeling project or something that's 2 years, or anything that's targeted, that's available for any amount between $0 and $1 million. The strategic needs blue sky, that's topic area 13, is up to $500,000 over 3 years. And for all of these areas, there's up to a $100,000 supplement for research experiences for undergraduate supplement that can be added on top of these maximums, meaning topic area 1 through 12 and NSUF 1.1 could be up to 1.1 million. Strategic needs could be up to $600,000. Period of performance is up to 3 years, and universities are eligible to lead. Universities, national laboratories, and industry are eligible to collaborate. Non-university partners can collaborate up to 20% of the overall budget from a funding standpoint. And as I mentioned, NSUF 1 is R&D and NSUF combined access. We estimate that there's going to be around $60 million in FY 2024 for these Appendix A scopes, totaling approximately 55 awards. And we have dedicated about $2 million for the REU supplements, totaling approximately 20 REU supplements to go on top of those awards. For IRPs, we have 2 scopes: Grand Challenges IRP for accelerating reactor deployment. That's up to 3 years for $3 million. And the Grand Challenge Research and Development at Minority Serving Institutions, 3 years and $3 million. Please do read through those scopes. Just like Appendix A, they can request up to $100,000 in REU supplements to supplement undergraduate research in those projects. Universities are eligible to lead. Universities, national laboratories, and industry are eligible to collaborate. Multiple universities typically team at a minimum for one of these IRP scopes, and international collaborations are encouraged but not required. And IRP2 has special eligibility criteria and teaming requirements. Those eligibility requirements really focus on getting the large majority of the research funding for that IRP at a minority serving institution with a national lab or a larger, more traditional university, being in a support role, maybe in a 20% or so support role. For Appendix C, the award size are really based on the access values that the NSUF office calculates. That's going to be calculated in a final statement of work and a final cost estimate that the NSUF office will put together based on what you want to do at any of the particular facilities. They're up to 3 years typically, but they can be up to 7 years if irradiation and PIE are proposed. That period of performance will really be defined by your team lead or with assistance from NSUF. Applications for NSUF2 are open to universities, national laboratories, and industries as leads and collaborators. And NSUF2 applications must have established R&D funding from another source. That could be an existing NEUP funding, lab funding, industry funding. We estimate there's approximately $5 million for NSUF access. That's between the NSUF 1 and NSUF 2 work scopes for NSUF access, totaling up to or around 7 awards. I do want to describe a unique opportunity for some of these scope areas. The Office or the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Technology and Development, OECD, has a NEA Nuclear Education Skills and Technology program called NEA NEST. This is not something that's going to be part of your proposal, but it's something that we want to make you aware of. In topic areas 1, 3, 10, and IRP 1, there is a possibility of incremental funding through OECD for university research projects across multiple countries to support student development. And so I'll let you read through this, but the idea here is that any projects in those areas would show interest in NEST, and then NEA NEST would reach out to those awarded projects to engage and see what kind of opportunity there would be after the project is awarded. To be clear, the NEA NEST opportunity is not reviewed as part of the application, and it doesn't need to be described in detail. It's just a potential opportunity in those 4 areas. So let's go to the research experiences for undergraduate supplements. I think collectively we're all excited about this in the phase 2 continuation, and I'd be happy to answer questions if there's some lack of clarity as we get through this. The REU program intends to promote undergraduate research opportunities in nuclear energy research and development by incentivizing CINR to include on-campus and off-campus students in research activities. So this is a training experience where the students' training consists of closely mentored independent research. There's 2 formats for this REU program. That of on-campus students, which is a structured program for a specific time, likely a semester or multiple semesters, focused on the project, where the undergraduate is paid on a pro rata basis or an on-effort basis, likely by the hour or some arrangement like that. There's also an option for REU summer programs that would support off-campus students from other universities for a specific duration, likely a summer. And the selection of students should focus on underserved communities and students from MSIs as a selection factor. Both of these formats should consider students from underserved communities as a selection factor when a professor who's running an REU program as part of their overall CINR project tries to select students. We understand that can be challenging in some cases, and so there is some flexibility in that space to be able to try to find students that from a scheduling standpoint and everything else will fit in one of those formats. All FY 2024 R&D and IRP scopes are eligible for one of these supplements. The supplement is going to be proposed as part of the CINR project and evaluated as part of the application. When the FOA comes out, you'll see that the REU should be considered as part of the overall project, but there's a specific call out in our full application review criteria, criteria 3, which where this specific aspect will be considered. There are some new application requirements for those that want to propose REU supplements, and so I wanted to walk through those just so you're aware of what you may need to prepare. For the pre-application phase, there will be a checkbox on the application form that just says, yes, I plan on including an REU, or I don't. That will give our office an idea of how many may be coming during the full application phase. And during the full application phase, there is an REU plan, which is 5 pages, where the and the overall budget thresholds have been increased. So the idea here is that you would describe to the best of your ability what your plans are for an REU and undergraduate support as part of the overall project. We do understand that the most effective REU programs are likely flexible and adaptable, and that you may not be able to provide all of the most detailed descriptions in a application form. But what we would ask you to do is to provide as much detailed description as you can. And we understand that adjustments to the REU plan for awarded projects are likely to be expected over the course of the project. And details would need to be provided to DOE if there were changes from alterations in any way in that space. PIs are responsible for developing the opportunity to best support students based on the project scope. And the PI would also be responsible for recruiting and selecting students, and then informing DOE about which students were selected and what portions of the project they were working on. And REU is a research training experience paid via stipend. And as I mentioned, consists of closely mentored independent research. And that means that funds received by students may be taxable or subject to local and state taxes. For a guideline standpoint, RU activities will not exceed $100,000 total over the course of the project. The term of the RU supplement can't exceed the term of the associated award since they'll be packaged up as one grant package. Student stipends should be comparable to other RU programs. For those who are familiar with the NSUF or NSF RU program, you'll likely notice that some of this, the inspiration for this and whether you want to call it plagiarism or whatever else came from NSF's RU program. And so student stipends should be competitive but comparable to other RU programs like NSF's, both from an on-campus pro rata standpoint or from a summer RU program. That would include total allowable direct costs, student costs like stipend, travel, housing, and indirect costs. Any exceptional circumstances that may exceed those types of guidelines would need to be pre-approved by DOE, and some communication would need to happen there to make sure that the experience is good for the students. For RU student eligibility, students must be U.S. citizens, U.S. nationals, or permanent residents. They must be undergraduate students. So that means they need to have part-time or full-time enrollment in a bachelor's or associate's degree program. There are a couple of circumstances where maybe they don't exactly meet that definition, but would still be allowable. That would be if they're transferring from one college to another and they're part of a summer program where they're not enrolled yet in either program, but will be starting the next semester. Rising high school graduates that have committed to an undergraduate institution but have not yet started are eligible to have an REU experience, but students that have received their bachelor degree and are no longer an undergraduate are not eligible. So that's our REU overview, and I'd be happy to answer questions as we wrap up the presentation. Let's go to phase 2 continuation CINR FOA. So this is a little weird because it is going to be its own funding opportunity. So I'm presenting it here in the middle because it kind of made the most sense, but this will be a separate funding opportunity from the CINR FOA. Phase 2 continuation funding opportunity is focused on continuing promising research pathways by soliciting applications that directly complement and extend research that has previously been awarded through the CINR or through NEUP. Phase 2 projects, by their nature, are extensions of current research activities and direction, and by their nature are shorter in duration and smaller in scope than the original CINR projects. I will remind everybody in this open topic area structure, if you do have a new research direction or something that's not a direct follow-on, it's always appropriate to put a full CINR 3-year up to $1 million application into the general pool for the CINR FOA rather than this phase 2 continuation. Phase 2 projects should provide a logical pathway between the current research scope on an active CINR award and new scope in a way that seamlessly transitions between the two projects. And the awards are planned so that there's no gap in funding between the original project and the new phase 2 award. That would mean that the original CINR project and the phase 2 continuation are two separate and distinct competitive DOE awards, but the original award would, for example, for this cycle end September 30th, 2024, and the phase 2 continuation would begin October 1st, 2024. The award size is up to 2/3 of the original CINR project award. That would typically fall within $300,000 to $1 million range, depending on if it was an IRP or an R&D project. Period of performance is up to 2 years. This would be, from an eligibility standpoint, R&D and IRP projects that are concluding on September 30th, 2024. Universities are eligible to lead. And once again, universities, national laboratories, and industry are eligible to collaborate. There's approximately $3 million for this continuation award, and that will total approximately 4 awards. That would be about what we would expect to be about 10% of the overall awards in any given year. Couple of eligibility considerations. Only one phase 2 continuation application can be submitted per active CINR project. Applications can only be made by the lead institution of the currently active CINR award that concludes on September 30th, 2024. The lead PI on the active CINR award and phase 2 continuation application should be the same. We understand that there may be extenuating circumstances where there's a good reason to put a new PI from the lead institution into that space, but that should be identified early and pre-approved by DOE. Eligibility restrictions from the CINR FOA that we'll get to later about no cost extensions and number of applications, all of those things do not apply to this funding opportunity. This is a distinct and separate opportunity from the CINR FOA. I want to quickly run through the process of what the phase 2 continuation will be, and then it will look a lot like a CINR FOA application, other than these items. There will be a letter of intent phase, as you saw in the overall schedule. That will be a 5-page white paper that in general describes the current progress of your existing CINR award, anticipated deliverables in the last 12 months of the award, and identification of what the new scope will be, and how the two projects will really mesh together into a seamless transitioning project. That letter of intent will be combined with the end of year and mid-year project reports that you have all put through PICS-NE. And those two pieces, the reporting and how the project has been going to date, plus the letter of intent, will be combined into a letter of intent review process where programmatic experts will evaluate those letters of intent and the proposed plan, along with the performance of the project and any concerns that there were there, to invite applications from that letter of intent process to submit a full application. Full applications will look a lot like a CINR full application, with one exception. The phase 2 continuation applications will require an additional 5-page transition plan that describes how the two projects will integrate and include any risks and risk mitigation plans about the last 12 to 14 months of the project to make sure that there's a smooth transition between the two projects. So the idea would be, if you're moving into this phase 2 space, that you would be making sure that you mitigate anything so there wouldn't be a no-cost extension and you could immediately roll into that phase 2 continuation project. Full applications will be evaluated by a panel of experts, including multiple technical peer reviewers, to evaluate technical merit for final recommendations. All right, I'm sure there'll be questions on that too, so we'll get to those in just a second. I want to go and take care of some policy updates and reminders and go through the review process. The major policy updates for this year are the university program topic areas are broader than previous years. That means we may have a large amount of applications in any specific topic area. Depending on the number of applications, areas may be subdivided into like categories within a topic area, and that division is only intended to facilitate a conflict-free review process and won't influence the ultimate selection of final applications. The idea there is that pre-application recommendations and final selections will come out of each of those topic areas, each and every one of those topic areas. NSUF 1, I've mentioned this several times, but it's important. It's going to allow R&D applications paired with NSUF access. And finally, and this is maybe one of the most down in the details things, but one of the most important things for preparing your application is collaborators have now been broken down into 2 designations. Those designations are senior and key personnel, which are individuals that are typically receiving funding or making major contributions to the project. All documentation is required for those folks. There is another designation called other collaborators or personnel, and they are listed in what's going to be called an other collaborator personnel section on the application form. Typically, they don't receive funding. They will likely, maybe they have advisory roles, maybe they're technical leads for NSUF, and they may be exempted from certain document requirements. Those will be clearly stated in the CINR FOA about where other collaborators or personnel are required to submit documents and where senior and key personnel are required to submit documents. Most notably, our current pending support document is one of those documents as an example. Senior and key personnel will be required to submit it. Other collaborators or personnel would not be required to submit it. So pay close attention there, and we plan on having some follow-up opportunities on how those applications get filled out and to answer specific questions for individuals about their project team and what requirements they may have based on their project team makeup. Reminder on formatting and page limits. Font sizing should be applied to all pages of the document, including references and tables. Graphic elements that have, that are access labels or legends can be in a lesser font but must be legible. This is an important thing that we run into every single year. Make sure those font sizing requirements are correct. We have this conversation with folks every year when they aren't, but the page limits are to create equity in the application process. And so if somebody is putting references in the correct font as is instructed and somebody else isn't, functionally they have more pages to actually make their case for an award. And so this is a sticky point. I know it seems minimal, but it has a big impact as you put your applications in and how they're ultimately reviewed. So please pay attention to font sizing, especially on references. We see those issues all of the time where references are not the correct font and need to be corrected. Page limits are strict for the reasons that I described before. It does create equity in the review process and gives everybody the exact same amount of space to make an argument for their research approach. And as a reminder, don't lock the cells in the budget spreadsheets. That makes life hard for our contracting folks. Technical narrative page limits. Appendix A has a 5-page pre-application and a 10-page full application. The exception to that is for the NSUF 1 projects. For the full application, you may need to describe the NSUF capabilities. So you're allotted an extra 5 pages, up to 15 pages for full applications for NSUF. As a reminder, for Appendix A, NSUF 1, and Appendix C, NSUF Access 2, there is a letter of intent requirement, a pre-application requirement, and a full application requirement. All 3 are required in those 4 areas. For Appendix B, IRP is up to a 50-page application. And I've already described Appendix C. It's the same as the NSUF 1, 2-page letter of intent, 5-page pre-application, up to 15-page full application. For application submission, you will submit through the NEUP.gov website. There is that sign-in area right there. You'll click on that and you'll go and create an account if you do not already have one. It's an easy process to set up and to get started. Once you get logged in, you're going to click on the Applications tab, and the open applications for NE's university opportunities will be available there where you can go and create a new application. For accounts and submissions, lead applicants must have an account at NEUP.gov. A research administrator or office sponsor programs individual may create and submit your application, but it must be tied to a lead PI account. So please, if you don't have an account, go create one. The application must be submitted by the same institution as the lead applicant. So if you are a collaborator from another institution, please do not go in and create an application on behalf of another institution and submit it. Applications are submitted by the lead institution at the pre-application phase, and applications cannot be moved to another institution mid-process. And materials required by the FOA must be submitted on time, on the published deadlines, and any material received after these dates may not be considered. Applicants, and that means institutions, are required to obtain a unique entity identifier and register with the SAM website. And then all CINR applications must include a list of publications during the pre-application stage for previously supported CINR projects that you were a part of. PIs and collaborators are considered final once submitted at the pre-application phase, and extenuating circumstances would allow a change in co-PIs, collaborators, or possibly the lead PI, but those must have contracting officer approval prior to the full application submission. And the PI is responsible for selecting the final topic area, and the full applications will compete in the same topic area where the pre-application was submitted. You can only submit an application once. So choose the right topic area and submit that application once. If there's applications, if you submit 2 applications in 2 different areas, they will likely get disregarded or dismissed, or you may need to choose between which one. This happens quite often, and so just please make sure you don't submit in more than one topic area the same application. It's absolutely appropriate to submit multiple applications that are different into different topic areas or the same topic area, but make sure those applications are different. After submissions, applications may be moved with PI approval to a different topic area if DOE deems that that topic area is more relevant to, for the application. The idea here is that if you selected the wrong topic area where it really isn't appropriate, the DOE would give you the benefit of moving it to a topic area that's more relevant for consideration in that area. Let's quickly go over NSUF applications. NSUF 1 applications can only be led by university applicants. NSUF 2 are open to universities, national labs, or industry. NSUF applicants are required to affirm their ability to accept the NSUF user agreement, which will be printed as an appendix in the FOA. And NSUF statements of work are a required document that are uploaded to nup.gov as what's called a post-submission attachment on the pre-application submission. This is confusing to you at any point in time as you're filling out an NSUF application. Please do reach out to the integration office for some clarification. We can point out exactly when it is and when those submitted deadlines are. It is described in the FOA, but may be confusing. From an eligibility standpoint, there's some eligibility requirements I want to go over for the CINR FOA. Do want to remind everybody that phase 2 continuation project FOA that I just went over, none of this stuff applies to that opportunity, but it does apply to the general CINR pool. There are submission limits, and applicants are responsible for not exceeding those limits. So please pay attention here and please read through them in the FOA. There are quite a few of them to go through. Investigators that are claiming a university affiliation must be considered faculty, not on appointment from a national laboratory. So in this funding opportunity, to qualify as a faculty member, more than 50% of that individual's salary and benefits must be paid by the university or the Institute of Higher Education. That means that the Institute of Higher Education should be considered the PI's primary employer. That means adjunct appointments, joint appointments, or other similar arrangements typically do not meet this requirement. This is intended to make sure that the lead PIs of the applications have that affiliation with the Institute of Higher Education first and foremost. Phase 2 continuation projects, as I mentioned, are not bound by these eligibility restrictions. For eligibility for the CINR FOA, U.S. university PIs may submit up to 6 pre-applications. You can be listed on 6 pre-applications. 3 of those applications could be as a lead PI. So your name should not appear on more than 6 total pre-applications, either as a PI, a co-PI, or a collaborator. A PI may have no more than 1 IRP or 3 R&D projects at any given time. That excludes NSUF 2 projects, and can't submit more full applications than they're eligible to be awarded. PIs can't submit the same application to multiple topic areas, and NSUF 2 projects are not bound by these eligibility restrictions unless they're specifically identified in the funding opportunity. For eligibility for Appendix A, applicants are ineligible to submit an R&D application to the CINR FOA as lead PI under any of the following circumstances. They have a currently funded IRP that will be active after December 31st, 2024. They have 3 or more R&D projects that will be active after December 31st, 2024, or the PI has a no-cost time extension on any funded project excluding infrastructure that will still be active beyond December 31st, 2024, excluding extensions caused by NSUF availability. For integrated research projects, they look very similar. Applicants as a lead PI are ineligible if they have a currently funded IRP that will be active after December 31st, 2024, have 3 or more R&D projects that are active after December 31st, 2024, have a no-cost time extension past December 31st, 2024, or they have more than one currently funded NE project that will be active beyond December 31st, 2024. Applicants that only have one currently funded R&D project are eligible to apply for an IRP. And applicants that don't have any active CINR projects can submit both an IRP application and up to one R&D application as part of an overall response to the CINR funding opportunity. Procurement regulations require that applications submitted to the CINR FOA be awarded to the applicant's entity. So although you will be a lead PI that proposes here, the award itself is negotiated and awarded to the applicant's institution. And that means that there are some protocols for once the pre-application is submitted, for actually being able to move that CINR funding opportunity from one institution to another. Most likely, you would be taking co-PI status if you move to another institution and designating a lead PI at the lead institution. And those eligibility requirements are described in detail both on the NEP.gov website and in the CINR FOA. Let's go to collaborations. Additional consideration is given to collaborations with minority serving institutions. My MSI list can be found in multiple locations, and the FOA outlines the process that we use to identify the Department of Education's list of MSI institutions. It's understood that that may not be completely updated, and if you feel that you have MSI designation that's not recognized as part of that list, then you can contact the integration office and we can look into the evidence of that and make a determination about whether for this funding opportunity you'd be given consideration as a minority serving institution. For non-university collaborators, with the exception of NSUF2, which doesn't award funding to institutions, in composite, the non-university collaborations can account for no more than 20% of total funds provided by the government. That's intended to keep most of the university funding at the universities, with the national laboratories or industry partners playing a supporting role in those spaces. And funding is for U.S. institutions only, meaning international organizations are encouraged to collaborate if they are neither a denied party nor a party requiring an export license. And U.S. funding will be provided to international will not be provided to international collaborators under any circumstances. But I will talk about some international partnerships that were mentioned earlier in the day that are partnerships that DOE has set up with other funding organizations in other countries to provide funding in those areas for collaborative projects. And so there are two international partnerships available, both with government research programs in the UK and Japan. Each country has selected topic areas where they have interest in joint funding of projects. And so US faculty can collaborate with UK counterparts or Japanese counterpart faculty in proposing projects in these areas. Applications with international collaborators should be developed in a way that the US portion stands on its own and the international partner stands on its own, meaning that if funding, for example, were to run out in the UK or Japan, that it wouldn't necessarily compromise the success of the overall project from a US funding standpoint. And proposals, regardless of the international partnership, will be evaluated through the CINR FOA review process, and projects will be selected based on their merits through that review process. The two agencies that are going to be participating are UK's Research Council's United Kingdom, RCUK's Energy Program. And this is led by the Engineering and Physical Sciences Research Council, ESPRC. They'll support collaboration in 3 of the 13 topic areas. Those are topic area 5, fuels, topic area 6, spent fuel, waste science technology, and integrated waste management system, and topic area 3, advanced nuclear materials. Japan's Atomic Energy Agency, JAEA, will support collaborations in topic area 9, measuring, monitoring, and controls. These countries will have their own application process with their own faculty members, we'll try to communicate those things and collaborate as much as we can to provide all of you information about what the process steps are for the UK partners or the Japanese partners as the FOA process progresses. I mentioned the definition of a collaborator earlier and can make any clarifications that I need here. But a collaborator is an individual making a defined material contribution critical to the success of the project. And if they're contributing or involved in joint publications for that project. That's typically someone who's appearing in the project summary, technical narrative, benefit of collaboration, coordination and management plan, or budget documents. They should be listed directly on the application form. Individuals not meeting that criteria should not be listed on the collaborator forms. And as I mentioned, the collaborator designations will be new this year, and they'll be designated on the application form as key and senior personnel and other collaborators and personnel based on the guidance I gave a little bit earlier in this presentation. It's important that PIs certify that all collaborators listed on the application have agreed to participate in the project. There's a requirement that you'll certify that. All individuals involved in the project must be listed, and applications that do not identify all collaborators may be dismissed. This is important for us to be able to manage any conflicts of interest and make sure that those who are potentially conflicted in that funding area are not involved in the application review. And it's important that individuals listed on the application are aware and have agreed to the obligations outlined in the proposal. Cost sharing is not required, but it is encouraged across the funding opportunity. And a couple of project administration reminders. This is if your project does get awarded through the funding opportunity. PIs and project transfers are quite complicated. And like I said before, the applicant institution is the institution that's awarded the project. And so there's a process for requesting a lead PI change to make sure that that process can be ongoing. That is DOE's PI move/change policy, which is explained in detail on NUP.gov. Awards from this FOA are made to the applying institution and will remain at that institution for the entirety of the project. And any changes to budget, partners, or collaborators must be approved through a budget change and or PI change process and approved by the DOE contracting officer. This FOA does allow pre-award costs, meaning that recipients may charge allowable costs to an award up to 90 days preceding the effective award date. And to do this, recipients must obtain prior approval by the DOE contracting officer for any pre-award costs that are greater than that 90 days. And there is a risk here that recipients are responsible for pre-award costs if award negotiations are unsuccessful. Last but not least, we've got our review process tools and submissions. We're almost there. So for our review criteria, there are several different review criteria to consider. There is an NE mission relevancy review across all of these areas that confirms that the application addresses a relevant aspect of NE's mission. There is a technical review process for our pre-application and full application process. Those use technical experts to identify high merit merit review, that focuses on originality, creativity, and thoroughness of the concept being proposed in the pre-application phase. And in the full application phase, a little bit more detailed review on advancing the state of knowledge and understanding and addressing gaps, technical quality of the proposed R&D, and applicant team capabilities, risks, and experiences. There is a diverse team scoring addition to both of these areas where additional consideration is given for meaningful participation with minority serving institutions. Meaningful participation means an MSI-led application, significant R&D contributions by the MSI institution, or significant MSI student involvement through an RU program or through regular means. There is some NSUF specific review criteria, a feasibility review and readiness review. Chris Barr and Brendan will take a more detailed look at this and provide some detail during their NSUF process. But these essentially are there to make sure that the NSUF project is feasible, that it can fit the reactor, for example, that it's a reasonable number of samples based on the spaces that they have available, those types of things. And a readiness review takes place both at the pre-application and full application review stages and evaluates whether samples are ready to actually be irradiated or to have PIE work performed on them or other things like that. And there are detailed stipulations in the funding opportunity that describe all of the criteria that go into both of these reviews. There is an opportunity for uninvited pre-applications through this review process. The pre-applications will result in an invitation to some applications and not an invitation for